this ramp is made out of. And then you have your dimensions, which isn't actually the width of the ramp. It's how long can the ramp be before it stops drawing. In this case, it says 30 feet is the maximum incline length. That means that with this ramp that we've drawn, we were able to draw it because it was only 24 feet in length. But if this ramp needed to rise 3 feet instead of 2 feet, which is what the ramp did and went up 2 feet, then we would have needed to create 2 ramps in order to address that condition, because the overall ramp length would have needed to be 36 feet, and this ramp can only be 30 feet in length. We also have an option here for the ramp maximum slope. What this means is that for every foot of rise, you have this many feet of length. So if I change this to be a 14 instead of a 12, what that would mean is that for every foot of rise, there would need to be 14 feet of ramp length. As it is right now, for every foot of rise, there's 12 foot of ramp length. So this can all be adjusted and customized any way that you'd like it. Also, I want to point out that you can always duplicate these ramps and then adjust these properties accordingly. So if I wanted to make a duplicate of this ramp 2, I could do that. I'll call it ramp 3, but I could give it any name that I wanted to. I like to have these same properties except with just 2 little changes to it. Instead of the shape being solid, I like that to be thick. Also, instead of the maximum incline length being 30 feet, I'll change that to be 32 feet. By doing that, we can click up here, and then we can see that our ramp 2 is still there with its original type properties. And if we come down to ramp 3, we now have this new ramp type that we could choose from with the new properties that we associated with it. Now just select on OK to that. So you can create your own custom ramps with their own custom properties. And those can be used on a project-by-project basis or just included inside of your template so that you always have that type of ramp available to you. It's always important to remember to use the right tool for the right task inside of Revit. Over the years, I've seen ramps used for a wide variety of different kinds of things. But one of the things that ramps do not do all that well are parking garage ramps. I know that the term parking garage ramp has a ramp in the title, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to use a ramp in order to achieve that slope from one level to the next level. I should also specify that when I'm talking about a parking garage ramp, I'm not just talking about the path that a car travels from one level to the next level. I'm really talking about those kinds of parking garage ramps where parking can also be associated with it. So it slopes down and cars park all along that ramp. For those kind of ramps, the best thing that you can do is use a floor instead of a ramp. Now to use a floor for this condition, you first need to go to your Architecture tab and then select on Floor. Usually here in the Type Selector list, you would pick what would be an appropriate kind of floor for a parking garage ramp. In fact, that's what I would suggest that you would do. Select on a floor, edit the type, give it the right properties within typical floor properties for what a parking garage ramp should be, and then use that kind of floor. But for our example, we'll just use this floor in generic 12-inch. Even though it's not exactly the most appropriate kind of floor for this parking garage ramp, it does use the exact same properties as far as how you draw it as whatever floor that you would come up with for that ramping condition. With the generic 12-inch selected, the first thing that I'd like to do is start to draw in the outside boundaries of the ramp. So let's start by selecting on the line. Click here, come down to here. And now I'm going to come over maybe 48 feet. Come across, then come down again like that. And let's just say that this is our ramp going from one level to the next level. The next thing that we need to do, though, is select this slope arrow. Click on the slope arrow, pick the middle of the ramp, pick the other end of the middle of the ramp, and now we have a slope arrow with the tail on one end and then the head on the other side, and that's where the little arrow shape is at. That's the head. What I like to do now is where we have our level at tail underneath properties, change that to be our upper level, in this case, level 2. For the level at head, change that to be the lower level, which is level 1. If you have a height offset tail, make sure that that's changed to be 0. Same thing with the height offset head. Make sure that that's 0. So by using the slope arrow, we can specify what the elevation is at this point, and then what the elevation is at this point down here. By doing that, we can click on the big green check mark, and now we have a ramp going from one level down to the other level. And we can see that if we look at it in a 3D view. Go to your default 3D view icon. Notice how we have it sloping from this level up to this level over to here, and we can spin it around by selecting right here, and then taking a look at our new parking garage ramp. Let's get through the process of creating a new railing type. What I'd like to do is replace the 2 railings that we have here on the staircase with a new type that we've created. So let's start by selecting on either one of the railings, then select on Edit Type. Here in the Type Properties dialog box, where it has Type, I like to click and then select a railing which is most closely related to the type of railing that I want to create. In this case, this handrail-pipe is the closest option that we have, so let's select on handrail-pipe. Next, come over here to duplicate, and what we want to do is create a duplicate of this type of handrail that we can then modify. And instead of handrail-pipe, let's rename it to be handrail-pipe with extensions. Then click on OK. We can see that there's an option here for a top rail, and the top rail really is what it sounds like. It's the railing up at the top of the rail. Right now it's at a height of 3 foot, and I do like that 3 foot. Also, it has a circular shape, which is 1.5 inches. I also like that. If for some reason, though, if we wanted to adjust the overall height of the railing, this would be the location where we would adjust it. Also, if we wanted to adjust the shape up there at the top of the railing, this would be the location where we could do that. We could change it to be a rectangular shape, an elliptical shape, or any shape that we choose to draw. If we did decide to draw our own custom shape, what we would need to do is come up here to the big R, the Applications menu, create a new Revit family, find a profile family, drawing the shape that we'd like that handrail to be, load that into our project, and then that would be one of our options available to us for our top rail. Now the next thing I'd like to do is come up here to our rail structure and then select on the edit button. Now railings are anything that go from left to right. And right now we can see that we have 5 railings associated with this type of railing. Now I really don't want to have 5 railings. I'd really only want to have 2 of them. So what I'm going to do is select on the number 3 here and then select on delete. Delete and then delete, so that we only have 2 railings left. One of these can be at 2 foot, and the other will be at 1 foot. For this top one, I'm going to change that to be 2 foot, and for the bottom railing, I'm going to choose that to be 1 foot. For the size and shape of these railings, if we click over here where we have our profile shapes, you can see that we have a variety of different sizes and shapes for these railings that we can choose from. Now I do like this circular handrail 1 inch, so I'll leave it at that. For the materials, this could be any material that shows up on our material list. Let's just leave it at by category. But realize that if we wanted to have a material assigned to this type of railing, we can do that now. Come down here and click on OK. Next thing I'd like to do is adjust my balusters. And the balusters are those pipes which are going straight up and down. If you select on the Edit button next to baluster placement, here we have our main baluster family, and it says baluster round 1 inch. Now this is probably a little bit thick for the kind of railing that we want to do. So come in here, click where it has the baluster round 1 inch, and then change it to be baluster round 3/4 of an inch. And instead of placement of every 4 feet of a new baluster, I'm going to have a new baluster every 4 inches. This will be the primary thing that keeps us from falling between each of these posts in the railing. So after putting in the 4 inches, come down here to our posts. And we have an option for our start post, our end post, and our corner post. And I want to make adjustments to our start post and our end post so that we have extensions here at the end of our family. So where we have the baluster round, click the little down arrow there. And now this is our start post, so scroll down toward the bottom and then find our post round with extension start and highlight it. For the in post, click there, click the arrow, scroll down. Once again, find post. This time, since it's the end post, let's pick the post, round with extension, end 1 inch. For the corner post, let's go through the same process, select there, scroll down, and I'd like to pick this baluster round 2 inches. This is a little bit more substantial for a corner post, and I just think it'll look good. Now that we've done all those things, come down here and click on OK. Everything seems to be okay, so let's click on OK one more time. And now let's take a look at our new handrail. Here we can see we have our rails at the 2-foot mark and the 1-foot mark. Each of our balusters every 4 inches. And here's the start post and end post with the extensions on the end. And now if we want to swap out the railing on the other side with this kind of railing, we can do that. Simply select on the railing, come over here to our type selector list, find the handrail, pipe with extensions, in order to swap out that kind of railing with our new railing family. There's a well-known function in Revit which allows us to make modifications to the top rail. What I like to do is zoom into this railing over on the right-hand side by spinning the wheel of the mouse. Don't click on the railing, just touch the railing up here at the top near the circular shape. Then select the Tab key on the keyboard. After clicking on Tab, you should be able to highlight the top rail. Then click on that top rail. Once it's turned blue, select on Edit Rail. Now what we can do is modify the path of this top rail. To do that, select on Edit Path. Then pick on Line. Click the endpoint of this purple line. Then draw a line straight out, 1 foot, 6 inches. Draw down 1 foot. Click, come back to your railing, and then click. And you'll notice that that rail is now following that path all the way on around. But before we click on the big green check mark, there's one other thing that I'd like to do. We have another command here called Edit Rail Joins. And if you select on Edit Rail Joins, what I'd like to do is round off this edge and this edge. To achieve that, with Edit Rail Joins selected, move your cursor down here until that little box shows up right here at the intersection of this blue line and this blue line. Click at that spot. You'll know you've selected it when it shows up as an X. And then you'll have an option where it says By Type. You can either miter it, which brings it to a corner like it currently is, or you can set a fillet for it. Change that to fillet. And for the radius, I'd like to give this a 4-inch radius. Click out here. If you zoom in, you'll see that we now have a 4-inch radius from here coming down to here. For the bottom one, I'd like a smaller radius. I'd like it to just be a 3-inch radius. So make sure that Edit Rail Joins is selected. Come down here to its intersection, click. Change that to fillet. And for the radius, make that a 3-inch radius. And then come down here. Click in this area, you'll see that it has rounded it off. And if you click on the big green check mark now, and click on it one more time, you'll now see that we have a new extension here at the top of our staircase. Comes around, rounds itself off, and comes around here again. And we could do the same thing down here at the other end of our railing if we so wished. All we would need to do is come over here at the Tab key, click on that top rail, and then go through the process of editing that rail's properties. Roofs are constructed in a similar way in Revit as our floors as well as our walls. Roofs are a variety of different layers of materials put together to make a composite roof. Now to see how these roofs are actually put together, if we go to the Architecture tab, we can select on the Roof command. It'll ask, where do we want to draw this roof? And we won't really be drawing the roof in, so we'll just stick with the level 2 and say yes. Now underneath Properties, we have our type selector list. And if we select on the type selector list, we can see all the different roofs that just come by default in Revit. What I'd like to do is create a new roof based off of one of our existing roofs. We'll start by selecting on the steel truss insulation of metal deck roof. Then click on Edit Type. And this will take us into the type properties of the roof. From here, what I'd like to do is duplicate this roof. So let's select on Duplicate, and it's asking for a name for this kind of roof. Now, I'd still want this to be a steel truss dash insulation on metal deck roof, but what I'll do is just delete the EPDM2 and put variable at the end. The reason is that we'll create a very similar roof to this roof, except we'll have a variable thickness to one of the material properties in the roof assembly. Now we'll click on OK, and then select on the Edit button next to Structure. Now we're inside of that type of roof, the one we just created with the variable thickness, and here we can see each layer of material inside of this roof. Now, if we need a preview of the way that it'll look in a section view, we can do that by selecting on the Preview button in the lower left-hand corner of this dialog box. And this shows us each layer of material, including the 1'4" for the structural steel bar joist and 5 inches for the rigid insulation. If we needed to insert in another layer of material, we could do that by selecting on the Insert button. If we wanted to delete the layer material, we could just click the layer material that we wanted to delete and select the Delete key. From here, we can also select what materials are being used in the roof, adjust the overall thickness of those materials, and then we have an option here for variable. And that's what we actually created up here, is a variable thickness for our roof. So since we want a variable thickness, let's put a check mark next to thermal air layer, rigid insulation, 5 inch. And by assigning a variable thickness to it, it means that we can have a roof drain up to our roof and have the roof slope down to the roof drain. And it won't be stuck to just having a 5-inch thick roof in this area. Maybe it'll go down to 4 inches, or maybe even as much as 3 inches, so that it can drain down to that roof drain, wherever we want to put our roof drain, inside of the roof. Here inside of the Edit Assembly dialog box, you can control the materials and the thicknesses of those materials that make up the roof. Once we have the roof the way that we like it, we can click on OK. We can also click on OK to this dialog box. And at this point, we can see that we have our new roof available to us. And if we wanted to draw it in using our typical roof commands, we could do that now. In this lesson, we learn how to create our own fascia board, as well as how to place that fascia board in our Revit model. Underneath the Architecture tab, we select on the little arrow next to Roof, then click on Roof Fascia. Then on the Type Selector list, let's select where it has the fascia flat 1x10. And we can see that right now we only have a fascia board, which is 1x10. And 1x10 is a little bit small for the kind of roof that we currently have. We really need to have the 1x12. So to place a 1x12 fascia, come over here, click somewhere out here in the white area. Come up here to the Architecture tab. Now you need to go to the little arrow next to Roof, select the Roof Fascia, then click on Edit Type. Then in the Type Properties dialog box, select on Duplicate, because we're going to make a copy of this fascia. Instead of the 1x10, we're going to change it so that it's 1x12. Then for the fascia flat, let's change that to be 1x12 and click on OK. Just because we've named it 1x12 does not make it 1x12 automatically. We still need to change the overall profile shape so that it's 1x12. So underneath the type parameters, we have Profile, select, and then for the fascia flat 1x10, change that by selecting the down arrow and then picking on 1x12. At this point, if we needed to add a material to this fascia board, we could. But as it is, we'll just leave it at by category. Click on OK. And now we can see that we have a 1x12 fascia board available to us. Now we need to go through the process of actually placing that fascia board inside of our Revit project. If we zoom in, let's select on this edge of the roof. By doing that, we can see that the fascia board has now been inserted right along the edge of the roof. Continue to do that for each of those upper edges of the roof. Go all the way around your model. If you need to spin the model around, you can do that by just clicking on this corner of the view cube. Continue to select the edges of your roof, and as you do that, it'll automatically clean your fascia board up at the corners where it's needing the other pieces of fascia. Now click on this intersection here, and then finish it off by selecting on this line going from here up to there. So you can create your own fascia board and your own fascia board sizes by coming up here to the Architecture tab, making sure to select the little arrow next to Roof, picking your roof fascia, and then picking the correct profile shape from underneath Edit Type. Revit has its own roof soffit tools. In order to use the roof soffit tools, you usually need to be inside of the floor plan view. So let's go to our level 2 floor plan view. After double clicking on the level 2, the next thing we should do is zoom into the floor plan view. Now, unfortunately, right now, it's kind of difficult for us to put our roof soffit in because we can't see the walls underneath the roof. So to see the walls, move your cursor down here to the Visual Styles button, and then select on Wireframe. That will allow us to see through our roof. Come up here to the Architecture tab, select the little arrow next to Roof, and then pick Roof Soffit. Now we need to draw in the locations where our roof soffit will be located at. And the roof soffit will come around each of these edges, which are currently not gabled. What we need to do now is come over here to the line tool and start drawing in the areas where we want our roof soffit to be. I'll zoom in down here, click the intersection of these two walls, come straight down to the edge of the roof, come across like this, zoom out, zoom in. I'm doing all this zooming just by spinning the wheel of my mouse. I'll click here, I'll zoom out, come all the way on across to here. Now I could either stop it here or just keep it going all the way on out to the outside, and that's what I'll do in this case, is just have it come all the way out to the outside. I'll come over to here, click, go across, click, come back down again, and then finally click. It needs to be one continuous line going all the way around the perimeter. I'll also point out that right now it's at level 2. And if we did need to adjust its overall height based off of what the actual roof height is, we can always do that later. Now click on the big green check mark. And now we have the soffit going around that portion of the roof. Now we need to do the exact same thing over here on the other side. So once again, go up here to the Architecture tab, then move over here to the little arrow next to Roof, select on Roof Soffit, click the Line tool, click the intersection there, come straight down, come across, move up like this, come across and over, come to this point and click, come straight up, click, come across, then come back down again. Then click on the big green check mark. And that'll finish off the soffit in that location. Now to see if we've got it in the right location, the next thing we need to do is look at it in a 3D view. So let's select on this default 3D view button icon. And now let's zoom in to see where that soffit's actually located at. And right now it looks like that soffit's just a little bit too high, so we'll need to make some adjustments to it so that the soffit isn't floating up above the roof location. To accomplish that, we can either select on the front of the view cube or go to one of our elevation views. In this case, I think I'll try to go to our south elevation view and take a look at our building. Inside of the south elevation view, if we zoom in, you start to get a better idea as to just how high up this actually is. And what I like to do is move the bottom of it down so it's even with the bottom of this piece. To accomplish that, I'll start by just trying to select on it, coming up here to the Move command, select at this location, and then try to move it down at this point. Notice how the entire thing is now dropped down to the correct elevation. Make sure that we do the same thing now over on the other piece of soffit that we created. Select on the soffit, click on Move, click at this spot, come straight down. Once you went straight down, you're not at a little bit of an angle. You can click in order to place that soffit right in the correct location. And finally, we can take a look at that soffit by selecting on the default 3D view button icon and seeing that yes, in fact, it is at the right elevation. Now that we have our roof and our soffit in place, the next thing that we need to be concerned about is the opening here at the eave. Right now, we can let in any of the elements, animals, insects, right into this opening. And we really need to box that area off. Now, there's two different ways that we can handle this situation. One way is by using walls, and then just drawing in our walls at this elevation and then having the top of the wall come up to the underneath side of the roof. The other way that we can do this is by drawing in what's called an in-place family, which is using a mass object to fill in the area right underneath the eave. And that's what I want to do for this exercise, is to create an in-place object underneath each of our eaves. What we first need to do is come up here to the Architecture tab, come up here to Component, select the little arrow next to Component, and select Model in Place. Then for the category of this Revit family, this will be a roof. So select on Roofs, then click on OK. Click on OK again, we'll just leave it as a roof swan. And what I like to do is draw in a triangular shape right into this area. To accomplish that, we need to select on Extrusion. We need to also pick a plane. So with Pick a Plane highlighted, click on OK. And the plane that we need to draw this extrusion along is at the face of this fascia board. Highlight over the top line, then select the Tab key on the keyboard. After clicking on Tab, you'll see two lines. Click, because at that point it means you've selected the front face of the fascia board. Now we need to draw in our shape. Select on the line, click on the endpoint of this line, come over. Once you get to the endpoint of this wall, in this case, I'm seeing 1 foot 8 1/4. What I'd like to do is come about another foot over from this point. Let's make it be 2 foot 8. Click there, come straight up, click, come over, and then click. So we have a nice sized triangle on this location. Now the next thing we need to do is associate some depth to this triangular shape. And the depth should be -2 feet. And the reason why it's negative is because a positive number will be coming towards you, a negative number will be going away from you. And that's what we need, is have it go away from us toward the house. Now that we have the -2 feet, we notice that there's an option here for material. Now I know that I have an aluminum material for my fascia going all the way around the building. So that's what I'd like to have for the material for this object as well. So come down here to where it has by category underneath properties, click, select the little button to the right, and make sure that aluminum is selected. Then click on OK. Then click on the big green check mark. Now select the big green check mark one more time to finish off this shape. Now we have that triangular shape immediately underneath the roof. Now there's one more thing that I'd like to try to do, and it works the majority of the time, and that is to clean up this shape with the fascia board here in front. To accomplish that, we just select on either the fascia or this shape, then come up here to the Join tool. Select on Join, pick the fascia board, pick the triangular shape, and then we can see that it cleans up cleanly right along this shape. Now the next thing I'd like to do is mirror this shape over to the other side. So to accomplish that, I'll hit Escape on the keyboard a few times, select on that shape, then select on Mirror Draw Axis. Pick the top of the roof, so you're at the ridge line, come straight down, click, and now that'll mirror it over to the other side. Hit the Escape key a couple times on the keyboard to get out of that portion of the command. Now see if we can clean this up over here. Click there, click on Join, make sure that we select on that fascia board, click on the little triangular shape now. And if for some reason it doesn't allow you to click on that triangular shape, it means that you're unable to get these two to be perfectly lined up. So as a result of that, we can't use the join command in order to join this side with the front face of this. To make a long story short, what that means is that we would basically need to redraw in that triangular shape here. And then after redrawing it in, just like we did over on the other side, then we'd be able to use the join tool to clean up the fascia board with this side. For right now, just leave it as it is. Let's go around to the other side of the roof. Underneath elevations in the project browser, let's go to the east side. And let's go through that same process one more time. Zoom in, come up here to the Architecture tab. Want to create a new in-place family. It'll be roofs. Click on OK. OK. Do an extrusion. You need to pick a plane. Touch the top line. Click the Tab key to highlight more than one line. Click. Now draw in your shape. Click here. Come over. We have the same overhang that we had before, so let's make this 2 foot 8 to make it the same in all locations. come straight up, come straight down. Make sure that the material is still aluminum, which in this case it is. Make sure that the depth is still -2 feet. Then click on the big green check mark. Let's see if you can join these two things together. We may need to select on this green check mark here first, but we'll see how it goes. We'll select on join. I notice that I can't select on this roof, so I'll just select on the big green check mark first. Now I'll select on the triangular shape, click on join, try to click there, click here. Now we can see how they're cleaned up. Now I can do the exact same thing over on the other side and then clean it up. But let's see if I can mirror it across and then clean it up using the join tool. So I'll select there. Once again, come up here to the near draw axis, click here, come straight down, click there, select on the object, see if we can join them, click here, come down here, and you notice it's not going to allow me to join it. What I would need to do is I would have to draw it again, just like on the other side, use the join tool, and then I'd be able to clean that intersection up where those two things cross. But for right now, let's just take a look at it in our 3D view. So now you can start to see what the process would be in order to clean up these conditions there at the eave. You have two different options available to you. One is drawing walls immediately underneath the edge of the eave, and then attaching the top of the walls to the underneath side of the roof. And the other option is what we just did, which is drawing a mass object and then join those to the roof up above. Ceilings have properties similar to your roof, your walls, and your floors. We can see the properties of our ceilings if we go to the Architecture tab and then select on Ceiling. Under these properties on the Type Selector list, I currently have a 2x4 ACT system, which is an acoustical tile system, ceiling. And if we click there on the Type Selector list, you can see that we have several different ceilings that we can choose from. Now we can customize and create our own ceilings. What I like to do in this case is select on the 2x2 ACT system ceiling, and we'll place that inside of our building. So after selecting on the 2x2 ACT system, come over here to the Edit Type button so we can see the properties of this ceiling. Where it has structure, select the Edit button. Then, here in the Edit Assembly dialog box, we can see that the ceiling has a structural element which is 1 5/8 of an inch thick. It also has a finish element, which is 5/8 of an inch thick, which is the actual acoustical ceiling tile itself. If we wanted to change the materials at this stage, we could. In this case, you can see the material for the acoustical ceiling tile is called 24x24. Click there. We could choose the 24x48 if we wanted the bigger tiles, or we could choose any of the other materials which are currently available to us inside of the project environment. Now, before I leave this screen, I do want to point out something, and that's the fact that we have a surface pattern associated with our ceilings. When we place our ceiling in initially, we'll look at it in a reflected ceiling plane view. And then when we see it in that plane view, we won't be seeing individual ceiling tiles. What we'll actually see is one big ceiling with a ceiling tile pattern associated with it. So those won't be ceiling tiles, though that's what they'll represent. It'll actually just be a pattern that's there that we can adjust as needed. And next thing I'll do is click on OK. Click on OK one more time. If we wanted to create a new type of ceiling, you could select on the Duplicate button, give it a name, and then give it the appropriate structural properties, exactly the same way as how we would do our floors, our walls, or our roof. And now I'll just come down here and click on OK. And to place a ceiling, we have two different ways that we can go about it. The first way is just to highlight inside of a room. Now I do want to give a warning that when I select inside of this space, which will allow us to do an automatic ceiling, it will generate an error message, and I'm expecting it. So let's click right inside of this space. Now here's that warning, what I call the error message. It has placed the ceiling into the space, but we can't see it. And the reason is that we're currently inside of a floor plan view, so we're looking down, not up toward the ceiling. We need to be in a reflected ceiling plane view to actually see our ceilings. So that's what we need to do. Let's click on the little X here to close our warning dialog down. But just realize that in fact, we have placed the ceiling already inside of the space. And to see that ceiling, we can go to our ceiling plans, level 1 view. So double click on the level 1 view, which is our new reflected ceiling plane view. Now that we're inside of the reflected ceiling plan view, let's go through the same steps and place a few more ceilings into these spaces. Once again, underneath the Architecture tab, select on Ceiling. I like this 2x2 ECT system, so I'll come over here. We'll see it highlight, click in order to place it in. How it knows where to place it in three-dimensional space is that underneath Properties, you can see that it's associated with the level that we're clicking on, and it has a height offset from that level, which means each of the ceilings that we've placed so far is at 8 feet above level 1. If we'd like that ceiling to be higher, you would need to adjust it by selecting where it has 8 feet, change that to be perhaps 9 feet, and then click inside of one of these spaces in order to place that new ceiling in at that new elevation. Another thing that we can do is actually just physically sketch our ceilings. And if we select on Sketch Ceiling, we can then draw around the perimeter of a room to place our ceilings in the exact areas where we'd like them to be. An example of that would be if we came up here, select on Rectangle, click the intersection of these two lines, came across. Perhaps we wanted to have the exact same ceiling going all the way across this space. We could do that, draw it all the way on across, click, and now we have the ceiling going all the way on across the space. Click on the big green check mark. There we have our ceiling. We can tell each one of these walls that they should attach to that ceiling, so they'll only go up to the ceiling. And to accomplish that, we can come up here to Attach Top Base. Make sure that top is selected, then find the ceiling object, click, and by doing that, now these walls are only going up to the underneath side of that ceiling in that location. I zoom back out again. Now we can see we have all of our walls inside of the space. To see this a little bit easier, what I'd like to do is now put a section through this view. So let's go to the View tab, click on Section, click once in this location, come straight across like this. Once we have this section in place with a box going around it like that, I'd like to right-click and then go to View. That'll take us to our section view. And here we can see we have our ceilings going right across in this location. We have another ceiling, that one we put a foot higher, over here in this location. And to see that even a little bit better, I know that that's the first section that I've placed inside of this view. So that'll be section 1. So if we come up here to our default 3D view, what we can do is highlight over our view cube, select on what's called the context menu, scroll down, and this is kind of going off the screen, but that's okay. Come over here to orient the view, go to sections, select on your section 1. Now if we select a corner of the view cube here, we can zoom in, and now we can see we're cutting through our building. Each one of these is a ceiling. There's that other ceiling that we placed just inside of this area. And now I'll rotate it around by holding down the Shift key and the wheel of my mouse. And you'll notice that all those walls, which were the same heights as the walls we had before, are now coming up and are actually stopping just on the underneath side of the ceiling, just the way that we intended. When you're designing in Revit, there are a wide variety of different objects you may place along a ceiling. That could include occupancy sensors, smoke detectors, and even your lighting fixtures. That's what we want to do in this exercise, is place some lighting fixtures up there on our ceiling. Now to accomplish that, we need to go to the Architecture tab and then select on Component. Then underneath Properties here on the Type Selector list, we can click, and what I'd like to select is this Troffer Light 2x2 Parabolic, the 120 volt. Click on that light fixture, come over here, then zoom in your reflected ceiling plane view. And I just want to place a few of these inside of the big room here. Now, when you first select on it and you move over here, sometimes you'll get this little crossing symbol, and other times you'll get the circle with a line going through it. Well, if that occurs when you're trying to place a light fixture in a reflected ceiling plan view, that means one of two things has occurred. Either there's not actually a ceiling there to place this light fixture on, or you have the wrong thing selected on the ribbon going across the top of the screen. In this case, it says Place on Vertical Face, which would be if we wanted to place this light along the face of the wall. Now, obviously, this is not the kind of light you'd place on the face of a wall, so we need to choose something else off of the list. And in this case, it needs to be Place on Face. This means it will place it right along the face of our ceiling that we placed in. Now what we need to do is move this light fixture so that it's right in here with one of the boxes. Now, unfortunately, you're already starting to see something, which is if I try to place this light fixture in here, I'm just sort of eyeballing it. I really can't tell if I'm getting it in the grid where it needs to be. So what I usually do when I'm placing my lights is I just place it somewhere close to where I want it to be at. I don't try to get it exact, at least not yet. Then I can escape a couple of times when I get out of the placement of the light fixture. Then select the light fixture, come up here to move. Then I'll pick the intersection of one of the corners of that light fixture. And then I'll move it to the intersection of somewhere along that ceiling grid and then click to put that into place. Then from here, I could either use the array command, or what I usually do is just use the copy command to copy that light fixture from spot to spot. So select on the light fixture, come up here to copy, click the intersection there, and then go over to the next spot where you'd like the light to be. And you can continue that process. Select copy. I do recommend selecting on multiple so you can continue to just click your base point, go over to the next spot where you'd like the light fixture to be, and continue that process all the way on across where your ceiling is located at. Once you have an entire row of those fixtures, you can just click over here somewhere, hold your mouse button down, window around all those light fixtures, and then use the copy command on all of them. Click there, come down, do that one more time, bring it down here in order to place light fixtures throughout your space. And now let's take a look at that extra functionality by zooming into this room over on the side. Let's once again try to place a light fixture into this space. Go up here to Architecture, select on Component, and this time I'd like to select this Troffer Light 2x4 Parabolic off of the list. Click on that, come over here, make sure that Place on Face is selected, highlight over your ceiling area, and instead of going in this direction, I'd like to rotate it around. Now to rotate this around, all you need to do is select on the spacebar. By hitting the spacebar, it will rotate that light fixture around. After you click the spacebar a few times, you should get it into this alignment. And now all you need to do is move it to where you'd like it to be, and then click to place that light fixture in. And then you can hit escape a couple times on the keyboard to get out of the actual placement of that light fixture. And then just like in the other locations, you can use the copy command to copy that around the room. But there is one more thing that I want to point out that you can do. Whenever you're in a reflected ceiling plan like this, and you're placing your lights, it's possible that you may realize that maybe your ceiling grid isn't really lined up the way that you'd like it. Maybe you'd like to move things around so your lights are in better locations or the grid just look better. Well, you can do that inside of this reflected ceiling plane view. All you need to do is highlight on one of the lines that make up that ceiling grid. Click on it. Then you can either use the move command to move it an exact distance, or you can use the arrows on your keyboard to move that ceiling grid around. Now I will point out that in this case, my light fixture did not move with it. So what I can do is select on it, come up here to the move command, click, and then just move my light fixture or multiple light fixtures back into place along that ceiling grid.